You may be wondering why I'm out here this morning. To tell you the truth, I'm wondering myself. But this morning I'm going to join the 50,000 other commuters to ride the Chicago Northwestern to work every day. I'm taking the 758. This is just a typical Chicago Northwestern commuter train, bound for the city of Chicago. Most of the people on here are riding to work. They're regular commuters, and they ride the train 10 times a week. For most of these people, the train is just a way of getting to and from work. But very few people realize the history of the railroad, the towns along it, and the people that it serves. This is the Pioneer. Very appropriate name, since it was the very first locomotive ever to be into the city of Chicago. It's now preserved at the Chicago Historical Society. Now, this locomotive, on November 20th, 1848, pulled a train of distinguished Chicago citizens out to Oak Park, a distance of 10 miles. The railroad was the Galena and Chicago Union. It was the predecessor of the Chicago Northwestern. The Galena and Chicago Union merged into the Chicago Northwestern in 1864, and soon trains like the Pioneer, pictured here, were a common sight in and out of the city of Chicago. Much of the history of the Northwest Line is contained in the towns the railroad serves, such as Mount Prospect, which is not noted for its eruptions. Passing into Des Plaines, we can see the only bridge in the world where two railroads cross. This is where the Chicago Northwestern and the Soo Line cross over the Northwest Highway. In 1854, the railroad reached Des Plaines. The first station at Des Plaines was at the corner of Rand and Minor, so that the engines could take on water from the Des Plaines River. Des Plaines had a principally German population in the 1850s. Over half of the foreign-born residents then were from Germany, and German church services continued into the 1900s. In 1854, the Chicago-St. Paul and Felac Railroad reached Park Ridge. The town was then called Brickton because of the large brick factory established there in 1854. Here is the first Brickton station. This photo was taken at the arrival of the first commuter train, which began operations in 1874, the great-grandfather of our own 758. Norwood Park was developed by a group of Chicagoans who called itself the Norwood Park Land and Building Association. Purchasing 840 acres in 1869, they built the town, naming it after Norwood, a novel by Henry Ward Beecher. A Chicago Northwestern station was built here in 1869, and for the first 2 months only one passenger regularly rode to and from Chicago. By 1884, 9 trains stopped daily, serving 60 to 70 passengers. Jefferson Park, established along Milwaukee Avenue, which was then a busy plank road, and later a streetcar line, was established by Germans and Scandinavians. This area grew rapidly, and by 1893 had been annexed by the city of Chicago. First Chicago Railroad Station, built on the west side of the Chicago River's North Branch at Kenzie Street by the Galena and Chicago Union in 1848. It later became a reading room for railroad employees. It was built on the site we are now going over, opposite the Merchandise Mart, which was the site of the later Chicago Northwestern Station. This station was built in 1871 to replace the station destroyed in the Great Chicago Fire. This station was replaced by a more modern and permanent one, which itself was replaced by the present Chicago and Northwestern Terminal in 1911, which we are now entering. Just as our ride of the 758 ends here, so do the lines of the Chicago and Northwestern, and so does this history of it. Stop now. This station is the symbol of the Chicago and Northwestern, an important and necessary part of the city of Chicago. The destination of millions of riders each year, the Chicago and Northwestern Chicago Terminal. It's now slated for destruction, to be replaced by a new modern office building and a new modern commuter station. This building, the symbol of the railroad, the Chicago Northwestern, must not be allowed to be destroyed. There's too much valuable history here, and history must be preserved.